Manish Mehta here alongside Seth, Walder on Black Monday, and as expected, Woody Johnson fired both John Idzik and Rex Ryan about 8 o'clock this morning at the Jets facility. Rex and John Idzik individually met with Woody, and Woody explained that he was indeed going to hit the reset button, Seth. That is not surprising. I thought what was really interesting was this press conference that Woody Johnson had, very candid, as candid as I can remember Woody talking about what direction the franchise is going to go in. Let's start with Rex Ryan. And he left on his own terms. He's a guy who loves to talk, loves to have speeches, but we found out kind of how he exited. It was pretty interesting, pretty cool.
Yeah, what Rex did was, he said, "I've said a lot of words," like you mentioned, and then instead of giving a big speech, he just played a video for the players of them making plays for him.
Right.
He actually walked out before he played the video, just thanked them and left them with that video. So that was Rex Ryan's exit from One Jets Drive here at Florham Park.
Yeah, and he said thanks for the memories, and he's off, and I think that he has handled himself exceptionally well this year, these past 2 years, really, Seth. The deck was stacked against him. We've talked about the personnel missteps by Idzik and being behind the 8 ball as a roster, and Rex has really handled himself well enough, I think, to get a look at some of these head coaching vacancies. What was ironic was that shortly after Rex Ryan was fired, Mike Smith down in Atlanta was fired as well, and I think if you're looking for a good opportunity for Rex as a head coach with a ready-made quarterback in place with Matt Ryan, a superstar wide receiver, Julio Jones, all Rex has got to do is fix that defense, and everybody knows he's a defensive whiz, so that might be a good place. Chicago, Oakland might be areas where Rex could get an interview, see what happens, but this organization is moving forward. John Idzik, after only 2 years, Seth, it's unusual, only 2 years, having the rug pulled out under him. If you look at it, from the John Idzik side, I think if you look at it from an objective side, he made enough mistakes to warrant the dismissal. What did Woody Johnson have to say about why he decided to change GM so quickly?
Well, he recognized that it was a short tenure, but he also said that we're in the business of winning and we're not winning. And he cited Bill Parcells' famous line, "You are what your record says you are."
Right.
He just said it just simply hasn't been good enough. And that's why he decided to clean house. And it's understandable, it was expected, and he said it became apparent to him during the season that was basically what had to happen.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, and Woody admitted as much, they're going to hire a general manager with a much stronger personnel or scouting background than John Idzik had, and that guy is going to have autonomy in determining what the front office makeup is going to look like. So if you're wondering about the personnel that John Idzik was working with up in that front office and their fate, I think that'll ultimately be determined by who the new GM is going to be. What was interesting is that Woody Johnson didn't necessarily say he would hire a general manager first. Now, Charlie Casterly and Juan Wolf, who are going to be the two primary consultants, are going to steer Woody in the right direction, and ultimately Woody's going to make the call. But there's a possibility that maybe a head coach gets hired first. Woody wouldn't rule that out. That's an interesting take when you think about traditionally, the GM gets hired first.
Yeah, that's right. And the other interesting thing was that Woody Johnson said that ultimately it will be his final call on the head coach. So if they do go the traditional route, hire the GM, it will still be Johnson's final decision on who the head coach is going to be.
Yeah, and that guy's going to be inclusive. He's going to have to let Woody in on what's going on. The last thing Woody Johnson wants is a guy who's secretive, a guy who keeps stuff from him, and that's going to be an important part. Don't discount that at all. As far as the players, the players were effusive about Rex Saturday after beating Miami in the season finale. Not that many players in the locker room this time around. And the most important guy on the roster, at least in terms of intrigue moving forward, is Geno Smith. Remember now, Seth, John Idzik, who drafted him, is no longer part of the equation. The Jets will obviously have a new offensive system. You would believe it won't be a West Coast-style system. And you saw a lot of interesting things, a lot of tantalizing things from Geno Smith yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he had that perfect quarterback rating. It was about as good as you could possibly expect. And, he said there was, you do think about where was that all year. Yeah. But going forward, he would not say that he expects to be the starter heading into training camp. And really he can't, because there's almost no situation, I think, where he just is handed the reins next year. Right. He's going to need to compete for the job. And that's really just the best case scenario for him.
Yeah, and he's going to have a coach who's has got a track record of grooming quarterbacks. And you say what you want about Rex Ryan as a head coach, brilliant defensive mind. He did not develop or groom a young quarterback. The next guy who I think should be an offensive-minded coach who can develop a quarterback, whether that's Geno Smith or somebody else that comes into the fold. But those are questions that are going to be answered down the road. The immediate concern for Woody Johnson and the Jets organization is finding a new face of the football operations and finding a new face on the sidelines. Woody said that they've already reached out to their candidates, and that's to be expected. You have to move quickly here. I'm sure they'll have some informal phone conversations before they start bringing some guys in. But the next week or so is going to be pivotal for the future direction of this franchise. It'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out. You can follow all of the Jets' doings on nydailynews.com. You can follow Seth at Seth Walder NYDN on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter as well on Mehta NYDN.